Hi everyone, afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar. So today I'm joined by UBS, who'll be talking about their Ex-Forces Associate Programme. Before we start, can everyone hear me okay? You'll see this is how you type in your questions or your answers, which you can do so throughout. So yeah, before we start, can you hear me? Brilliant, that seems like a yes. So today, as I say, I'm joined by UBS. We've got Matthew, Katie, Erica and Rebecca. If you guys just wanted to introduce yourselves quickly.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. I'm Matt Raeside, one of two on the Ex-Forces scheme. So myself and Katie start in October. And Katie?
Hi everyone, I'm Katie. I am the second of the first of the Ex-Forces programme hires. And I'm going to pass you on to Erica now.
Hi guys, I'm Erica Magnum and I lead the program from an HR perspective.
Hi, and I'm Rebecca and I'm supporting Erica with the program from a HR perspective as well.
Brilliant, thank you. And I should have said at the beginning, I'm Esme Dixon. I'm the Employer Engagement Manager for the OA. So I've been working with UBS now for a while on their sort of Ex-Forces recruitment program. So maybe Matt, Katie, if you could just give an overview of UBS, what you do, sort of your cultures and your values, and a bit about the military network you have going.
Okay, so UBS, we are a Swiss bank, and we reference the EFAP scheme. We are conducting the hires within the investment bank. So the investment bank exists as one of the three main arms of UBS, and we're headquartered here in London, so the positions are London-based. In terms of culture and values, culture is something that if you came to the Inside Day, and regardless if you go onto the website of UBS, you'll see how highly culture ranks amongst the things that we care about. That culture is a real distinguishing factor of UBS. I think it's something that you'll often hear and sort of pay lip service to, but actually at UBS, it really is a cornerstone of the bank. So when you first arrive, you'll be told the pillars, so the pillars and the principles of the bank, and those are sort of reinforced and reiterated throughout your time here. And actually your behaviour is as important as your performance here at the bank. And actually when we get our end of year assessments, they're based equally on our behaviours. So really important. The culture itself from someone that's here is absolutely fantastic, and have really enjoyed the first few months. So excited to be speaking to a few more people today about my experience.
And I'll just touch on the military network here at UBS. The programme itself was actually designed by a team, including some ex-service personnel. And it's been so supported by the senior management here that we're actually expanding the 2020 programme to offer a large number of placements in a wider variety of roles. We've got our own internal UBS vet network here at UBS. So there are routes for direct hires if that's something people are interested in. But for today, we're just going to focus on the Ex-Forces programme.
It's Erica here. Sorry, Esme. Just to elaborate a bit on what Matt said in terms of our culture here at UBS and our behaviours, the point he made around how much we value and uphold you to our behaviours here. And as Matt said, we have a year-end review, which is you are rated upon our three behaviours, which is collaboration, challenge, and integrity. And that really does, those three behaviors really do make up our culture here. So that challenge one, it's not so much challenging yourself, but it's being able to be an environment where you feel like you can challenge others regardless of position and rank, and really making it an open space where everyone feels like they can be heard and that they can challenge the status quo. So I think that is, incredibly important and really a big part of our organization. And that goes hand in hand with our collaboration as well. So As if you did come to our Insight Day, which was held a few weeks ago, you will have seen how closely we all work together across the firm, which really speaks volumes to what we do here at UBS.
Brilliant, thanks, Erica. So I should just say to everybody as well, if you have any questions, please feel free to submit them throughout. The team at UBS are sort of more than happy to answer your questions. However silly you might think they are, they're probably not, and I'm sure other people are wanting to ask them as well. So do just shout out in the question box whenever you want. So Katie, Matt, you already talked about the associate programme earlier. Can we go into a bit more detail on this? So what can people expect? And Erica, Rebecca, I think you'll be able to talk us through the recruitment process as well in a bit more detail.
So the Ex-Forces Associate Programme, as I said, the first iteration, myself and Katie, started in October of last year. It's a programme which is based in the investment bank of UBS in London, and is based around a series of placements that take place over a 12-month period. So the idea is you join, you have your sort of initial landing where you have initial level of training and sort of meet a wide variety of people from across the division. And then at that point, you go into a series of 2 to 3 month placements within different desks. So for us this year, we've been based within equities. So for us, that looks like 3 rotations within equities and then 1 in research. But actually going into this next iteration, we had a restructuring of the investment bank this year, which means that equities is now aligned with our FRC, so our FX and credit team downstairs. So actually, in terms of where you'll be rotating through, those positions were almost doubled. And not only that, but it will involve global banking as well, which is the sort of one of the other divisions of the investment bank. So the opportunity in terms of you joining for next year is vast, and you'll spend almost 12 months conducting a series of 3 to 4 placements, so that when you come to the end of your time, you can make a really informed decision as to where you best fit, which team you most enjoy, and then actually the bank will sort of make a decision as well as to where you best fit. So the idea is it's a two-way process throughout, where you get to learn, meet a load of people, build up a really solid foundation in the industry, and then decide on where you're best placed to move forward with your career.
So just to elaborate a little bit on what Matt... Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, just a question there, just on your last point, Matt. After the 12 months is up, is there somebody wondering if it's a guaranteed post at the end, or whether it's more sort of networking your way around the business and finding a more permanent job for yourself?
No. So I just want to be very clear on this. You are a permanent employee from the second you walk through the door. So whereas, yes, absolutely, you're going to have an opportunity to sort of raise your hand and say which areas you're most interested in. You are employed and will be as soon as you come when you finish the program. This is a permanent placement, and it's more just to give you the opportunity of exploring different kind of roles and different seats, so different desks, and being able to see where your interests lie and where your skills lie, and then going and sitting on a desk permanently after that. But no, if you go through the program, it's not, if you don't know where you want to go, there's not going to be a seat for you. Absolutely not. There is a seat for everyone from the second they walk in the door.
And that was a real differentiator for me, and I think Katie applying that sort of warm, fuzzy feeling that you're moving into a permanent role and not coming in for a 3 to 6 month period, where at the end of that you might then face as much uncertainty as you face throughout your resettlement, throughout the resettlement process. So that's a massive factor as to why I think this program offers a huge amount. I think also as well, with the permanent employee status, that means you have access to all of the permanent employee privileges that you might not necessarily be able to access at other firms. So things like your medical cover, gym membership, things like that, which I think a lot of us took for granted during our time in the forces. All those sort of perks roll over as you are given that permanent employee status. So it's actually, more important than you may initially think.
Yep, and just to elaborate on what Matt was saying earlier as well about the program and the different roles, as Katie mentioned, we have expanded, so we've over doubled our headcount for this year, which is incredibly exciting. It also is a testament to how well and the impact Katie and Matt have made in just a short period of time, so over the past 4 months. And in saying that these roles, I think, Matt talked about FX, rates and credit, equities. I think, don't be put off if you don't know exactly what that means. Basically, there are roles available within our sales and trading business. There are roles available within our investment banking. So as an investment banker. So there are different types of roles as well as research roles, which are now available. And so in terms of research, that is helping to research to put forth for both those sales and trading and investment bankers to be able to make educated decisions day to day. So all of these roles are vital and crucial to keep the bank going. And it's a very exciting time, and it really shows, like I said, a true testament to the impact Matt and Katie have made. And so I think that's absolutely worth noting. If you don't know exactly what you're interested in doing now, please don't fret about it. There will be plenty of time to sort of figure that out through the application process.
And Erica, if it's the opposite and you know sort of exactly where you think you'll fit or you have a particular area of interest, can you choose where about you are placed, or is it more on sort of internal demand?
No, so how it will start is basically if you're successful. So maybe I should talk a little bit about the recruiting process and sort of the application process rather quickly, because that kind of ties into your question, Esme. So if you haven't already, you can find the application on our job board, so ubs.com/jobs. You can search X-Forces as one word. You can also visit any of our LinkedIn pages, UBS LinkedIn page, UBS's Facebook page, and you will be able to find the link there as well. So once you apply for the program, basically you will have to take two different assessments. One is called a cultural appraiser test, which assesses whether or not you're a cultural fit for us and if we're a good cultural fit for you. That is not something you can study for. It's basically a situational judgment test, and it's based on what you answer. It predicts the next question. So again, it's nothing you can study for. It absolutely tells you scenarios that you may experience day to day in the workplace, and you basically allocate how you would respond to them. And from that test, you then take a numerical test. So the numerical test is a test that uses tables and graphs to basically assess your analytical and numerical abilities. And that one is a little bit more intimidating, I'm going to be honest, especially if you haven't taken any sort of math test recently. And so for me, that would be way too long ago. And so we do point you in the direction of some great practice tests. So if you go to Google and type in Talent Q, there will be some test assessments that you can take to help prepare you for the test. So that's really important to note. If you are looking to apply, I would absolutely take some tests, some practice tests beforehand. And from there, if you're successful, you then get kicked to the video interview portion of the application. So the video interview asks 7 questions, which you answer, and it's very much so like doing Skype, but you're looking at yourself, so you're recording yourself basically answering these questions. So in that, the first question you will be asked will be what area are you most interested in? Investment banking or sales and trading? So that's going to be your first point of registering that interest. So if you are looking to apply, absolutely, please take some time, think about which area interests you more. But if you say, for example, if you're to say sales and trading during that video interview, and then you are successful and get to the second round, and there will be opportunities to learn more about the individual programs, and you decide, oh, actually, I feel quite drawn to investment banking over sales and trading, you can absolutely change. So it's more a point, that first stage is more a point of registering your interest. And then we're going to invite everyone who was successful in the first round to join us we're going to host insight calls, and there will be insight calls hosted for each of our programs. So there will be one all on investment banking and how that program is very specific to investment banking. There will be one on sales and trading, so again, very specific to the sales and trading program, which Matt and Katie are doing currently. And then there will be one on research as well. So after you've been informed and really and we will invite everyone to join as many of them as they want. So if you want to join all three, or if you're just particularly interested in, say, research and sales and trading, you can join all of them, one of them, whichever. And then from there, we'd ask you to register your interest with us, and we'll have you rate them from most interested, basically 1 out of 3 in terms of where you'd like your placement to be. And then from there, we would ask you to come in for an assessment day, which would be face-to-face interviews with the business and with myself. And if we feel that you'd be a better fit for somewhere else, we'd obviously let you know. But there are multiple opportunities to register your interest and say which one and which program you're most leaning towards, where you think your skill set lies. And it's nothing set in stone, and we will make sure you have all of the tools and information necessary to make that decision.
Brilliant, thank you, Erica. And we've just had somebody ask who should really be applying for this program. So are there any sort of specific skill sets that you're looking for, or what does the ideal candidate look like? What should people be sort of putting in their applications?
So aside from the criteria for applying, which is obviously you must have served in the regular forces, and a 2-1 degree, the skill set we're looking for, my recommendation would be someone who's interested in continuous learning. Obviously, it is a steep learning curve moving into a career in finance, but you're very well supported on this program. So there's fantastic training opportunities, but you've got to be willing to learn and willing to commit the time to learn. Also, as there is an emphasis on the rotation elements of this role, there is opportunity to keep learning throughout the year. It's not just going to be 1 month of learning at the start and then into a job.
Yeah, and I would just say, to sort of go on that, someone who, as Katie said, someone who's motivated, who has an interest in financial services, and someone who likes working in team environments. Like I said, that situational judgment test, and if you were able to join us on our Insight Day, you'll have seen the culture. We are a very collaborative. It sounds cliche, but we are a family. It feels like a family, and so you have to be wanting to work in an environment like that. So that's really, those would be the things that we would require. No real specific, background or skills we're looking for. We just want people who are motivated and interested in financial services.
Great. And just a quick one, is this only for people who are actually in that resettlement period, or what if someone had sort of left the military a couple of years ago?
So if you have left the military a couple of years ago, we would say that you would not be eligible for this specific program. That being said, I would still very much so be open to discussing opportunities with you at UBS. And just for a bit of context, we met some individuals on our Insight Day, and that didn't necessarily meet the criteria for the program, but they are actually currently in interviews for other roles, lateral hires in the firm. So please don't let that put you off of UBS if you don't necessarily fit the criteria for the program. I also will say we have said that it is resettlement, or those who have left in the past 6 months. Last year, the requirement for that was 12 months. If you're somewhere in between, please still apply to the program. That's something I'm willing to be a bit more open about, as opposed to really drawing a hard line on the 6 months.
Okay, great. And just another really quick one as well. The sort of degree element, having a 2-1, is that 100% necessary, or what about if people could prove their sort of educational qualifications in different ways?
So that's something I'd look at on a case-by-case basis. For example, if you have your CFA, we would be open for you to apply. It would really depend on the qualification that you've gained, and if you're currently in progress, we would say probably not. But again, those are case-by-case basis.
Okay.
Just while I'm talking about requirements, Katie, I think, mentioned, but we would say, in terms of that sort of resettlement or working in the last, or coming out in the last 6 months, we'd also say if you are currently potentially enrolled in a different program similar to ours that may not be a permanent role, please do consider us. I mean, it doesn't hurt to have the conversations. We are not, we wouldn't be saying no to applicants that may be in similar programs but are, not permanent roles. So if you're not in a permanent role right now, we're still very much so open to it. So please do apply.
Brilliant. So Katie and Matt, if you could just talk us through sort of both of your transitions maybe, and what you've learned in your last couple of months with UBS, or if you have any advice for people who are transitioning themselves.
Yeah, I'll go first. So I transitioned from the Royal Artillery. I served with the Artillery for 8 years, and then came to UBS on the ex-Forces programme. If I'm honest, when I started the resettlement process, I wasn't entirely sure what I was going to do, where I was going to go, and there was just so many questions and so much uncertainty. But after doing my research and networking, I realised that I was very much attracted to the financial sector, and actually attended UBS's Insight Day and learned more about the programme, met the people here and realised I liked them. I liked the idea of the programme and applied and was fortunate enough to get in. So my advice to anyone who is going through the resettlement journey is just you keep doing your research, and then once you make one decision, use that as a kind of a fundamental basis from where to make other decisions. So for example, do you want to work in London? Do you want to work in financial services? What kind of people do you want to work with? What kind of roles do you want to do? If you can answer one of those questions, then that's at least the first piece of the jigsaw puzzle, and you can work out from there.
So I spent 6 years in the Royal Navy as a surface warfare officer, and then qualifying as a fighter controller. In terms of how I ended up here, I think I worked out initially that I wanted to live and work in the city, and that was pretty much non-negotiable for me. And then from there, I then started looking at career opportunities within the city. So things like finance, but also consultancy, insurance, etc. I actually was in this sort of position about a year ago when I listened to another webinar from a rival firm, and there was somebody who recently started there who gave the advice of making sure you read the FT every day and listen to, I think it was 5 Lives Wake Up to Money podcast. And he said, if you find that sort of thing interesting, then financial services is probably a good fit. And as it happened, I started reading the FT. It was pretty tough to get through initially, but it gets a lot easier as you start to understand a bit more. And if you do that and you find that sort of stuff interesting and you don't just throw away the business supplement, then financial services is probably a pretty good career opportunity for you. And there are obviously other perks as well that come with financial services, as opposed to other city careers. So that was sort of what led me to this. And as I've mentioned before, I think UBS's offering of a permanent position was a massive USP for me, but also the fact that you are able to rotate around and sort of gain a broader exposure to the bank. So I know Erica mentioned earlier that you might not know what you're interested in, when you're in the application process? Well, I can tell you now that I'm still not entirely sure where I want to go, and I'm in the middle of the EFAP program. I've just finished my first rotation. I've just started my second, and I'm really excited about seeing my other placements, the other desks. And so even now, I don't necessarily know exactly where I want to end up, but I certainly know that the firm is where I want to end up. So obviously that's a good decision on my end.
Brilliant, thank you. So we do have a couple of questions, but before we go on to those, could you just talk us through the next steps? So sort of timelines maybe for the different recruitment elements.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of timelines, we are planning to close the applications on the 29th of February. As of right now, we would say you need to have your application complete. So typically I tell people to give yourself 7 days to complete the first stage of the application process. So that includes the 2 tests as well as the video interview. So if you are looking to apply, I would say sooner rather than later. Go ahead and get started on your application. In terms of timeline, closing the application on the 29th of February, you should then hear from us within 2 weeks of the application closing. And from there, and basically, if you're not successful before then, if you were to fail an assessment, we would let you know in quite real time. So you'd usually find out within a day or two of taking those assessments. But if you've gone on to the video interview stage, you would then be reviewed with everyone in the pool once the applications close. So again, you'd expect to hear from us within 2 weeks of those closing down. So first 2 weeks of March, you can expect to get an email from me. And then from there, we'd send out time and dates for those insight sessions, which are going to be phone sessions. They will likely be similar format to this, so similar webinar style sessions. And again, we will hold 3 of them for each of our programs. So you can really get some insight into what each program entails. Like Matt said, for example, the sales and trading will do 3 rotations, 4-month rotations, and then spend some time in research. The setup investment banking will be slightly different, and so you'll actually sit on 2 or 3 desks, I think, in there as well, but just slightly different format. So really, we talk you through exactly what you'd be expected to do during those 12 months, and sort of then what it looks like afterwards. And so that would be happening probably the last 2 weeks of March. And then we would invite you to come for an assessment day. So an assessment day would take place in London. If you are aware that you won't be around, so if you're deployed on assignment, that's absolutely fine. The purpose of this program is we want to be as flexible as possible. And so we can absolutely host interviews via Skype, and we do have the technology to be able to do those things no matter where you are in the world. So please don't fret if that is the situation, if you know you won't be around in April, but otherwise we would ask you to come down and it would basically be a day of interviews being held at our office in London, and those would likely be sorry, go ahead.
So I was just going to say, thinking about that, we just had somebody ask, what if your timelines kind of don't match up with this? So the start date, would there be any chance of potentially starting later or being taken on another intake? What do you think?
Yeah, so we are, our start date is flexible, so it's really whenever you can start. And so in saying that, we would ask that you are able to join UBS in 2020. I know that as you're going through your sort of resettlement, lots of people have leave. We would say after you've finished your leave, you would then be able to start at UBS. You actually can't be employed by UBS as well as the forces at the same time. So we would just say that as long as you're going to be out in 2020, then you're able to join. And that means if you're out in December 1st, 2020, that's absolutely fine. The purpose of the program is to be as flexible as possible. If you're not going to be out in 2020, we then just say join in 20, apply to the 2021 program. So that's all we ask. We're quite flexible with days and timeline as long as you're able to get in the door this year.
Great, thank you. So there's been two people asked the same question actually, but for someone who has never really interviewed before or sort of had much experience applying for things, what sort of advice or top tips would you give to people, especially through the video interview and then obviously a full day sort of back-to-back interviews? Quite a lot for someone who hasn't done it before. Any advice?
Yeah, so I totally appreciate it's quite daunting. Basically, what I say to everyone, and a bit of a trick, is if you're going to do the video interview, I always tell people to make sure you practice first. So it can be quite awkward, to be honest, doing a video interview because you're just looking at yourself, and I think sometimes we take for granted, people's facial expressions, body languages, how much we rely on them when having conversations. So I just tell people to put your phone up and put it on selfie mode, press record, and ask yourself some questions. So the questions for the video interview are a combination of commercial and competency-based questions. So I would say, sort of on what Matt said around reading the FT, make sure you're aware of some of the current events. It's not going to be too difficult of questions, but there may be questions that say, can you talk about a current event that is affecting, stock currently, or that would have an effect on UBS. And those kind of questions are what we're going to be looking for. We're not going to say, can you tell us how to trade X, a derivative? Those aren't the questions we're going to be asking you. It's going to be quite broad, commercial-based questions. Also, I gave a little hint earlier, but absolutely do a bit of research on global banking investment banking versus sales and trading. That will be the first question on the video interview, is which area you're more interested in. So it's a good way, I'm giving you a question now, it's a good way to start off and really start off on the right foot. Just do a bit of research, and you don't need to know in depth the differences, but really to be able to just give your opinion on what, or your insight on what you think you'd be more interested in and why is helpful. And then in terms of the interviews that will be in person, you actually spend lots of time with me by that stage, and we will do a briefing call before the assessment day. So basically, once you get to the second round, so to say, we are going to be in contact constantly. So any kind of questions you have about interviewing, I will give you, very similar to as I'm doing now, give you a sort of hints on what to expect in your assessment day. We'll talk about how to, everything from down to what's appropriate to wear to the day. So those kind of things, I'm here. Me and Becky are here, and you have our complete, support through that process.
In terms of what to prepare for the interviews, from an applicant standpoint, half of the interviews will be competency based. So that's really just a question of knowing your own career history and then being able to sort of sell yourself. So don't be afraid to brag about your achievements, and have a real think about what you've done, what you've achieved, and it will be the standards questions. When have you faced a challenge? How have you overcome this challenge, etc. In terms of industry knowledge, certainly when I applied, my knowledge of the industry was fairly minimal, but what I did prepare really was concerned with three main points. So the first was identifying a few key themes. So those might be things, those are financial themes. So for example, at the moment you might look at ESG, you might look at coronavirus, and then look at relating those to perhaps 3 or 4 different stories that you currently might be reading in the FT or just in the paper, revolving around particular stocks or selections of stocks. have a rough idea of the job. Nobody's expecting you to know exactly what it's going to look like, and you really can't get an idea of that until you start working. But what you can do is go on, use resources like YouTube and just type in, day in the life of a sales trader, and you'll pull up 10,000 videos from people that have been sales traders and will tell you exactly what their day looks like. And while it might not be perfectly accurate of your time at UBS, it's only going to give you an idea, and then you can relate that to your skill set and how you think you might be a good fit for that. And I think finally, as with applying anywhere, just having a really good knowledge of the company. So just going onto the UBS website, having a browse, understanding what the key ambitions of UBS are, what our drivers are, our cultural values, and our latest annual reports. So, how are things looking at the moment? What challenges are we facing, etc. So all of this stuff you can pull open source, you can read in the press, you can read online, you can watch online. It's all really accessible. Don't be intimidated by having to have a huge knowledge. I think just showing willing and being able to prove that you are genuinely interested in the opportunity is going to be more than enough to stand you in good stead for the interview process.
Thank you. So I think a final question, I'm not sure how much detail you will be able to go into, but it's on the topic of pay. So obviously you mentioned it's a permanent contract, you will be part of UBS. Is the pay going to be sort of on a similar level, do you think, to an officer leaving the military, or people need to take a step down to then take a step back up again? Maybe Erica, Rebecca, do you have any more details on that which you could share?
Yeah, sure. So what I would say is just feedback from Matt and Katie. It would be the equivalent of a lieutenant colonel's salary. So I think basically the feedback through the program last year, and sort of, once when the offers, we started talking about offers, we are competitive and we pay competitively. I have spoken to a few people on the Insight Day around ballpark what to expect, and everyone seemed pleasantly surprised. So I'll let you guys take that as you will.
Thank you. No, that's really helpful. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and to all our speakers as well. I think this has been really useful. So everybody, just a reminder, applications close 29th of February, so definitely get those in as soon as possible. Erica, Katie, Matt, Rebecca, if people were looking just for sort of more application support or advice, what's the best way to sort of reach out or get in contact?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm happy for you to reach out to me. If that is, people can find me on LinkedIn. So my name is Erica Mangum. That's man like a man, and gum like chewing gum. And I'm happy to speak to anyone for any questions you may have.
And likewise for myself and Katie, LinkedIn probably the best method of communication. So just if you want to speak more broadly about it or our experiences so far, then feel free to reach out and we can get in contact with you.
Brilliant. Well, thanks again all for your insights. The next webinar, I think, is up on our website already, looking at opportunities in security. So just go on our website and you'll be able to register for that one as well. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.